Hey everybody, welcome to Snap Take. We had on Friday Nerfs announced to two decks, the two meta decks that everyone has been whining about. I told you in the video from Thursday that will be linked in the description that Nerfs are the only way to shake up the meta. Thanos and Shuri are the most powerful decks in the game. The only way to make them not the most powerful decks in the game is to nerf or buff. Card releases do not do the job. We don't have a release system that works for that. So Thanos, good old 6, suddenly 11, and his 6 Infinity Stones, and Shuri are potentially up for nerf. I don't actually expect these cards to get nerfed. I'm going to go over what potential nerfs could be this video, but I don't expect it to actually happen. So, um, Shuri's nerf would have to almost certainly be that she would be a 5/2. If she's a 5/2, it's much harder to get two abilities out of her. It's far more difficult to make her trigger twice and then win, or excuse me, copy her effect and then have her win 2 lanes. Another potential nerf could be the next card you play. If the next card you play is in this lane, it gets double power, a la a rescue. That would work just fine because that means that has to be your armor lane, and you can't Taskmaster in the other lane because that would be the Cosmo lane. Um, and you can't play the Cosmo there because then Shuri's not triggering. You can't play Shuri in the Cosmo lane, then that's not triggering, and you can't play the Taskmaster in the Cosmo lane because that's not triggering. Those things would make Shuri more risky. Shang-Chi is then a better answer. Ghost becomes much more of a meta card, etc. Both of those changes are completely fine for our friend Shuri. Let's see if either happens. Thanos himself probably loses a point or so of power, I would assume, but that's not a real nerf. It's not even really super relevant. My working assumption is Space Stone gets reworked. Space Stone being a get into impossible locations free is just absolutely crazy strong. I would guess that Space Stone gets changed to work like Cloak and moves things to it instead of away from it. So you can't get into locations and you can't abuse it as much as Lockjaw. Besides that, I could see it's changed to Time Stone, but that's much harder to do. I don't really think the other stones are going to change. So, what else could change? The most obvious, Leech is changing, right? Like, there's been enough of an outcry about Leech. Everyone hates it. It's an NPE card. So, Leech is going to go. I think Leech getting the Nakia treatment is probably fine. It'll hit the left 2 cards of your hand. I think should work fine. I think the suggested change I've seen a lot everywhere of it only blanks your card for the next turn is still probably too strong and still is going to create similar experiences. Just lowering the strength unfortunately won't do it. Again, if you look through decks that have reached infinite, an upsetting number of the good stuff and now the negative, which is horrifying, decks are playing Leech. Um, this deck's just going to get more and more of a. This card is just going to get more and more of a problem in more and more decks, and it has to go. So, Leech is a potential nerf. Other potential nerfs. We can knock 2 power off Red Skull. If you knock 2 power off Red Skull, he's still at 26 with Shuri. But all those +2s start to add up and matter more, assuming your opponent is playing reasonably big things. Not my favorite thing, but I don't actually understand why the hell Red Skull is a 5/15. That seems absurd for this card in particular because, this isn't one of the heavy hitters of the Marvel Universe. This is like a standard villain. Like, on what planet is Red Skull more powerful than Magneto, for example? Um, but okay, Red Skull loses a couple points of power as a potential change. I don't really expect it. I think the change I'd like to see for the Shuri deck is Taskmaster. I want Taskmaster to either be a 6 or to have some other negative ability or to copy the card's base power or something along those lines. Taskmaster, as it is just too good, especially in combination with Red Skull, especially in combination with Shuri. That She-Hulk 40 power last turn, you have to skip a turn for Infinite. Being able to drop 40 with a 1-cost She-Hulk and Taskmaster is probably too much. Taskmaster really needs to be hit. I think making it 6 is the most likely nerf here, but I can see some other negative effects as a possibility there, like copying base power. Other potential changes to that deck, well, one real one, would be Cosmo. Cosmo's a card that's long been lamented for having no real counterplay. It's a really important meta card. In particular, in early pool 3, if you get Wong early, there's like nothing you can do about it if you don't have Cosmo. So Cosmo becomes an important meta card there. But perhaps like playing a second Cosmo in the same lane cancels out the effect or something along those lines, so that it at least offers something to do with it. You take the risk of putting Cosmo in your deck in order to counter another Cosmo when you might not really want to, etc., etc. Um, that's all I really have for Cosmo. I think Cosmo's really important in the meta, and I hope this isn't the way they go. All right, the Thanos nerf is likely, to me, going to be Space Stone, Leech, and I'm hoping for Lockjaw. Lockjaw is a card that I don't think is actually broken in Thanos. I don't think it's the best card like many others do. I do, however, truly believe that it's like Leech going to get more and more broken. The more cheap things we have, the more powerful things we are able to energy cheat out. So I think Lockjaw's simplest switch is um after you play the first card here, each turn swap with a card in your deck. A lot of the most powerful Lockjaw turns are those where you drop 2 or 3 things on Lockjaw. If you could only drop 1 thing on Lockjaw per turn, I think that would do a reasonably solid job of bringing him in line. Lastly, they're not going to fix this, but Sunspot's too good. Sunspot as a 1 that just says every time my turn doesn't go the way I want it to, um, I get stronger is too good. It enables way too much stuff. It's too good in Thanos, where you often have just extra 4 or 5 energy. Him sitting there as a 1/4, 1/5, 1/6 is very often frustrating. It's too strong in Shuri, where you're often passing turn 5 to keep that Shuri buff. Or you're passing something like turn 2 or 3, and he just gets bigger than every other one. And it's going to continue to rise in power as there becomes more and more late game stuff. Okay, those I think are the most likely nerfs, and I'm just going to tell you right away what I'm rooting for is the Shuri 1 lane nerf. A nerf to, in particular, not Thanos himself, but Space Stone to have the cloak effect of move something to. Leech, I mean, just leech from the game, but just blanking the left 2 cards in an opponent's hand. And uh, Taskmaster becoming a 6. And finally, Lockjaw only affecting the first card. I think that's enough changes. So my hope is this nerf doesn't seem to be coming within the next couple days. I think that's enough changes that 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 should give the meta more than a couple weeks to stabilize. If the meta has more than a couple weeks to stabilize, it will take people longer to get sick of it and longer for the next round of nerfs to be needed. Please like and subscribe, and remember, I got 99 problems, and they're all leeches. See you tomorrow for another Snap Take.